All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to sit down with me. For those that might not be familiar, we have the runner of the channel of Connecting the Dots, which covers a few things Tesla. But one of the things that really brought my attention to your channel is the fact that the way you sort of construct the material and the way you show, like the last one that you did on the GM one of the recent ones that you did on how essentially GM took bailout money in the United States and essentially used it to grow their business in China. I found it super, super fascinating. And after I saw that, I just found, I started watching more of your stuff from beforehand as well. I find your content really, really interesting. And I just want to thank you for all the work that you do. And, let's sit down and have a conversation about it, and whatever comes up, comes up. But I just want to say thank you for taking the time, man. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So maybe we can start with kind of give us an idea of how you sort of enter the Tesla world, how you got yourself familiar with that space, sort of like your Tesla story, and then we'll take it from there. See what comes out of it.
Actually, it's a bit strange.
Okay.
I say years ago, I worked in I think it was like 2016 or something like that. I worked in a very, very strenuous project. It was agile, it was a lot of work, hours into the night and so on. And after the project was over, after my term in the project went on, but I went elsewhere, I just felt I had so much time on my hands. So I decided to check what I could do with this time. I decided to just follow my passions and so on. Mm-hmm. One of the things I like is doing presentations, talking to people. And another thing is I'm very curious. I want to see what happens with the future, because I saw everything is changing so fast around me. Mm-hmm. And things that we developed that took us so long to develop beforehand, now it just happens so fast. So I want to check what happened, what's going on with the future. And I did a presentation about the future, and it was nice, it was good. And then I dug on and did another one. And that one caught like fire, because just went from I went to doing this presentation to different audiences. I think about 29 times and so on. I changed it around the way. Mm. And the main thing in that presentation was that the future is always changing, and it's exponential. Mm. And the things that we see right now are very slow compared to what will happen in the future. And the main idea was, I showed there was like a GIF. It was like in 2018, the graphics and so on, very old and so on, very ancient compared to nowadays. But there was like a GIF showing like a climber climbing a wall, a rock. Mm-hmm. And I said the exponential that we're climbing is getting very, very steep. Mm-hmm. And what we have to do, we have to look forward so we won't fall. And then you see the guy falling off the wall, mm-hmm. and then a parachute opens up. So I say, and if we do fall, we need a parachute. So that's the main idea. I said, we have to look forward. Nowadays, I say different. Nowadays, I say that we're living in a time of disruptions, and disruptions are like a tsunami. And if you see it heading towards you, you can either drown in it or surf it. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to surf this tsunami. And one of the things in this presentation was I saw Tesla coming again and again. I looked into energy and I saw Tesla. And I looked into electric cars and I saw Tesla. And I looked into everywhere I went, there was Tesla in some way or another. In solar, it was Solar City back then. But the main idea, I said, wow, everywhere I look, there's Tesla. And one thing else that was in the presentation was that I said, people think linearly, and we see the future as linear. Well, but in fact, it is exponential because of all the technology and the disruption.
Yeah.
So if we're talking not Tesla for a moment, but investing, until that moment, I was only invested in index funds because I believed in all the efficient market hypothesis, which says that the market is efficient and don't try beating the market because you want to do it consistently. And whenever I thought, okay, this is a good company to invest in, I blocked myself because I said, hey, I'm doing this part-time and then doing it late. So it's very vain of me to think I can beat the market when the market is efficient. But then suddenly I said, oh, one moment. In Tesla, it is one case where the market is not efficient because the market thinks linearly, while in fact it's exponential. So the gap between the linear and the exponential is an inefficiency in the market. And I said, okay, I have to invest in this. And when I started investing in the dug more, I saw the FUD about Tesla. I said, oh man, this is one place where the market is really inefficient because all the FUD says it's a bad company, it's going to fail, and so on and so on. Well, in fact, it's amazing. It has amazing technology. So I started dipping my toes in the water, and later I went all in. And nowadays I'm even leveraged onto Tesla because of all the CHOAM hypothesis and so on. So really, that's basically my Tesla story because it started with the presentation, but you can pretty much say that this presentation changed my life.
Wow. How long ago was this where you started researching Tesla?
It started about 2016. The presentations were between 2016 to 2018. And I started investing in 2018 and put a large sum of money just before the market shot up in 2019.
Awesome. So then you really, that was almost like peak FUD, like 2016, 2017, 2018 is sort of when you discovered it. So did you compare that to any other potential investments that were out there? And was Tesla an outlier as well? Or was it just such a huge disparity versus, what I find your comments super interesting is, so much of the population thinks in that way where they think the market is efficient, and you would be silly to think that you can somehow as an individual figure out a situation where the almighty market is wrong, right? But I think a lot of us that were in the Tesla community, including yourself, like we found that. Did you compare that to any other opportunities that were out there as well, or was it just one of those things that was way too obvious to pass up?
It was way too obvious because I didn't even look at other opportunities because, first of all, I wouldn't invest in anything non-destructive because if it's non-destructive, it's better, in my viewpoint, to just go on indexes.
Sure.
Because the basic idea is I don't have any insider information about any company. And this means that whatever I do about a company, because I don't have any insider information, I can only assess the company like everyone else says, which one time will be better, another time will be worse, and always I'll be late because I'm not on it full time and I get my info from Yahoo or whatever. So it's it's not like living there and seeing it. So I just decided if it's not destructive, I'm just going through indexes. And in fact, I was invested in index funds for a long while when I went into Tesla, before I went all in. There was also, like I say, a mid-stage where I went into ARK funds, where I said, okay, it's disruptive, but at least it's also diversified. I let them diversify it for me.
Got it. How do you compare? So based on the research that you were doing back then about the disruptive nature of Tesla, and you think about Tesla today in 2022, did you see, and one of the things you brought up was that, hey, like, Tesla's disruption back then was obvious and was one of the reasons why you invested. But if you think about the disruption that they're theoretically hitting now, like back 2016, 2017, things like the bot were not even close to being part of the story. Full self-driving was in a sense, but nowhere near as obvious as it is today, potentially. How did you envision Tesla continuing to broaden their disruption back then, or are you surprised by the direction they're taking now, like dipping their toes into the bot and things like that? How do you think about that as you invest in the company?
Let's say that back then I didn't think this far about Tesla itself. So them going into this, if you'd asked me back then, I'd say, okay, I didn't expect it. But it's very natural for me. And let's say I'd like to go back to this presentation, by the way, for a moment.
Yeah.
The main point about this presentation was I want to give a deep. The title was, there are a few titles, but the main title was a deep peek into the future. Okay, it's a very presumptuous of me to say I can look into the future and tell you exactly what will happen. But I said I will tell you exactly what will happen. And why? Because basically there were a few points. I showed that everything is going exponential and so on. And then I said, what's stopping us from making science fiction? Why science fiction? Why isn't it real?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you want something to happen. Let's say it's within the laws of physics. Okay, so it's possible, but why can't it happen? So one thing is funding. You need money. Another thing, you need technology. Another thing, you need the manpower, the workforce to make it happen. And the last thing was cost. They're all intertwined. And I showed how all of these bases are going to get covered in time. Because let's look at Tesla for a moment. I think Tesla was basically, if you look at cost for a moment. So the cost of going to space, it was astronomical before. Because you had to, it's single-use rockets.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, let's make it multiple-use rockets. And now they're talking about Starship, and they're talking about $10 per kilo, which is amazing. I don't know if you watched my my last video with the CTO. It was a week ago.
I haven't had a chance to watch that yet.
A friend of mine, CTO of an AI company in Germany.
Mm.
And I had a talk with her after the Lex Friedman interview. And what she said there about $10 per kilo, she said it opens everything. Because going to space is going so cheap, is becoming so cheap that even the most absurd ideas will be possible. And I said, okay, give me an idea of something absurd. So she just threw from the depth of her mind, just for a moment, said, okay, let's say you can take urns of your loved ones, the ashes of your loved ones, and throw them to space. Okay,
wow,
that's a good idea. Yeah, and you say it will orbit Earth for a while and so on. But then she said, okay, but I promised you wanted something absurd. I'll show you how even absurd will happen. And then this is a bit touchy. Some people won't like this, but for others it is possible. Said, let's say you take your loved ones died, and instead of putting them in a coffin and so on, all dressed up and so on, you shoot them to space, to orbit, and they circle Earth several times before going. You put them a bit suborbital with speed, suborbital with velocity. So they circle Earth, and then they go into the atmosphere, and there's cremation into the atmosphere. They become one with the atmosphere. You can do this also with pets. So she said something like, look at Granny. Granny is all dressed up and so on in her finest dress. And now you look at your app and you see now she's over England. Now she's over Japan. She always thought of going there and so on. And it's absurd. It's a crazy idea. But it's real because it's $10 per kilo.
Wow.
You can at $1,000, you have a lot of profit in this. And it becomes real. He said, okay, this is an absurd example, but it's true. You can also do this with pets. Take a look at the Starship, at the hatch of the Starship as like a giant frog. And it shoots your pet all dressed up with the Superman cape and so on. And it circles Earth before becoming part of the atmosphere. Now, some people won't like it, but others would. And you have an industry here, you have a business that will make millions.
Yeah.
It becomes real because cost is negligible. It's $10 per kilo. Now, what I said in this presentation, going back again to this presentation in 2016, 2018, what I said that basically, if you look at this cost, $10 is now. If you look deep into the future, it won't be $10. It'll be 10 cents.
Yeah.
It'll be 1 cent and so on. And the technology is getting faster. It's getting, you look at Moore's law or Wright's law, it's getting faster all the time. And the cost is going down all the time. My base idea there was that everything will be free. If you look at Elon, for example, it says that the bot will free us from work. And it's right. It will free us from work. And we can work if we want, but we won't have to.
Yeah.
But what Elon said there was that we will have UBI instead, universal basic income. And I say he's right, but only for a certain time, because afterwards it'll be, let's say, UGI, universal generous income. We'll have everything. We'll live in a world of abundance because, let's give an idea. When did you replace your smartphone?
Why would I?
When your current smartphone.
Oh, when did I replace my old one? Basically, like a year ago. It hasn't been that long ago. Yeah.
Okay. And when did you buy this previous iPhone or smartphone?
Like 2 years. Like basically that would have been like 3 years ago, right? Something like that.
Okay. Yeah. 3 years ago. Now, what do you do? Do you use this old phone currently?
No, it's gone. I don't even know where it is.
So you just bought it. So it's worthless, right? You treat it as worthless. You didn't sell it. You didn't sell it. You're not using it. It's just worthless.
Honestly, I can't even remember. It's like it's exited my mind completely. I can't even remember what I did with it.
Basically, it's worthless. Now, if you look at this phone, it's a 3-year-old phone. And basically from 2 years ago, it was already worthless. From 1 year ago. Yeah. 2 years after we bought it, it's already worthless. And it's like a freaking supercomputer compared to 10 years ago. It's a supercomputer. And you don't even, it's worth nothing to you.
Well, yeah.
And you can look at it. And that's now the exponential. It's going a lot steeper.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be 2 years. It's going to be 2 days.
Yeah.
It's going to be that whatever you buy, whatever you want, basically, you can get. And not only the smartwatch and so on, smartphones and so on, it'll be everything. Because we're now living in a world of scarcity. And it's hard for us to imagine how the world will look when we don't have this scarcity, because let's say right now, if there's a limit to everything we can get, and all these people looking at the billionaires taking their parts of the pie and so on, they say, okay, they're taking the large slice of the pie, it's leaving nothing for us. But once the pie becomes infinite, then basically you can take whatever you like.
Yeah.
So let's say for example, let's move forward, not 10 years, 100 years, okay? So let's say bots are everywhere, and they're cheap because you can get bots. You can make another bot and so on. Bots can make bots. So they're cheap. You can have as many bots for you working for you. Now let's take a crazy idea, okay? Let's say you want to build some kind of, you want to build a habitat on the moon and an underground habitat on the moon yourself, not something by NASA or SpaceX and so on.
Yeah.
What's stopping from doing it? Because basically, if you look at the exponential, now at least it seems like something that you can't do. But if energy becomes free, energy will become free because we have the sun, it's nuclear reactor. And if you look at the workforce, it's free. You can have as many bots as you like. The bots will be just like your old smartphone.
Let me tell you. Let me tell you where my head goes with that. So how do you see the mechanism of, like, how do you see this in the hands of a few, or do you see this in the hands of everyone? Like, how do you see this sort of playing out? Because I agree with you 100%. I've been reading this book. I read this book, Sapiens. I've been following Andrew Yang in the past. Like, these are topics that I'm somewhat familiar with. And what the one thing that I'm constantly struggling with is, like, this is an inevitable outcome, it seems like. But my biggest concern is, like, okay, who's going to end up with it? You know? So I'm really curious to hear how you've thought about this. Yeah.
Okay. Just one moment. Let you just drink for a moment.
Do what you guys do.
Just 1 moment. Okay.
No problem. I'm going to take a drink break as well. Fascinating discussion so far, by the way.
Thanks. Okay. This you just asked a great point, because until recently, I didn't have a clue. I knew this will happen someday. I didn't know how it will happen, but very recently, I wanted to do the video about it, but I didn't get the time. But I finally know, I think I know, how this will happen, because what you said basically is, okay, everything is getting so cheap. It will get so cheap. But right now, we can see that billionaires are having, they have a lot of money. We also have a lot more than before. Just a small example before I go on, a small example from that presentation that changed my life. Basically, just to give you an idea of how rich you are, and that even before you went to Tesla. When you just finished school with all the debts that you had and so on, I show you how rich you were. Imagine you go into your car and you drive away from home until you go into your car, you fill in $1 of gas or $1 of electricity and drive away from home, okay? Until this $1 of gas or electricity is gone, okay? Now, it'll take you a few miles away from home. Now, pick up your phone and phone some guys to carry you on a litter. Like kings, they would be taken on a litter. There would be one guy in the front, one guy in the back, and they would hold them in a litter in the middle. So take two guys, call some guys to take you home on the litter. Now, how much would that cost you for these two guys to take you back home for that distance? It would cost you a lot, astronomical, thousands and thousands of dollars just for this case. But instead, for $1, you did it with your air conditioning on and with the stereo and so on. You have a Tesla, and it even drove itself most of the way. So we are richer than anyone in history right now. Even the poor people nowadays are richer than anyone in history. So, and it's getting more and more this way. But still, when I'm talking about infinite wealth, I didn't understand till now what will make the shift that will give all of us this being infinitely rich, every one of us. Okay, so if you want to build this habitat on the moon, you can do it instead of if laws and so on allow, of course, and to not say, okay, the billionaires can do it, but I can just live a nice life. You will live a nice life, but what I'm talking about is an infinite possibilities. And now I got it, finally, because I don't know if you know this video with my previous talk with that CTO friend, which was after AI Day, when she said that Tesla will be CHOAM. Did you say that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the thing. That's the company that basically makes everything, right? Essentially.
Yeah.
Like the largest company ever.
Yeah. Basically.
Yeah.
My friend, she wasn't even a Tesla fan. I mean, she liked the company and so on, but she wasn't invested and so on. And 3 days after AID, or 2 days after AID, she went on her Facebook and she went on a rant there that she said she works in AI. She co-founded and she's a CTO of an AI company. And she's always proud of how they're taking the best people and so on. And she calls them AI designers. And it's the only one I know her who calls them that way. And she said, Tesla is going to rob us of everyone. I won't be able to keep anyone, because she saw AI Day as turning Tesla into some magnet for talent. Okay. And the other thing she said is Tesla is about to win AGI, artificial general intelligence, and they're going to win the bot. And there will become CHOAM. CHOAM is from Frank Herbert's book, Dune. It's a company that does everything, the largest company in the universe. And basically, everything is done or sold by them. The only thing they don't do is transportation. And in this case, Elon also has transportation with both Tesla and SpaceX.
Yeah.
And what she envisioned, by the way, is that right now, let's say the bot By the way, it's not a plug, but in a few days, I'm going to release the another part of my interview I talked with her after Elon had this Lex Friedman interview a few months ago.
Yeah.
So part one was just a nice talk. Part one that I released last week was just a nice discussion about various things in the Lex Friedman interview.
Mm-hmm.
But the part that I'm releasing this week is about the bot and AGI. And one moment, let me just show you something, okay?
Okay, no problem.
Just show you something.
Yeah, don't be afraid to plug stuff. By the way, if you want to plug stuff, plug stuff.
No, it's not American plugging. One moment, I just want to show you.
No problem.
This one, which is one moment. Let me just show you this. Tesla bot is a done deal.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if you can see it.
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay. So basically, what she says is, she showed me. Basically, she told me to look into it, and she made me see why the factory bot is a done deal,
mm-hmm.
which means she says in about 2 years, the bot starting to work, less than 2 years, it's 1.5 years from now, actually, the bot starting to work in Tesla's factories. She showed me how it can do the work, factory work, in Tesla factories better than humans. It will turn the factories. Let's take a station with wiring, okay? It can do the wire. It will be able 2 years from now to do the wiring better than a human being. You will be able to do it with bots in ways that humans can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
Just another. You know how roofers throw the tiles from one to another and they set them for a chain. That's an example that I get it during the talk. But basically, you think about like one bot taking the wire from a bin, throwing it to two others that are already inside the car, and each of them grab it and plug it in their part and start sticking it inside into the channels and so on, into the tunnels. So they can do it faster than humans, and they don't tire. So basically, the bots will turn the factories into the alien dreadnought. You can go one station at a time. And the amazing thing is that factories right now, car factories, they work at the same pace as they did at Henry Ford's days. And I don't know if Sandy Monroe or John Maxwell said it, but I checked and it's right. It's the same pace as in Henry Ford's days, which is 100 years ago.
Just assembly line style.
And, and the reason is the machinery can go faster, but humans can't. We tire, and there's a limit to how fast we can do things. So you can make the process simpler and so on. And like Tesla did, I said that Tesla has like, they did various stages. And let me just change the background for me because this one is really, okay, so much better. Okay, and Tesla, I said they did various stages of the Industrial Revolution. Because first they said, okay, humans, they cost a lot and they slow the process. So let's put robots inside of them. And they put in a lot of robots, much more than other factories. And they did too fast, so it blocked them. And so they put humans back and so on. But they put in a lot of robots. Then they said, okay, robots also cost a lot. And they also break it down. So let's make these gigacastings. So, and the next stage of the revolution will be they say, okay, the humans that we do have in the production line that we can't replace by robots, will replace them with the humanoid robots.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll be able to do it much faster than humans. And then you can just start cranking up the speed and do it much faster than now. So when Giga Berlin was opened, there was this celebration, and one guy in the crowd still on best case scenario. How many gigafactories will you open in the next 10
10,
years?
right?
He said 10.
Yeah.
And I said, no. The best case scenario, logistics aside, and logistics is a big problem, but if you put logistics aside, the best case scenario is 0 new factories. The best factory is no factory. You have the existing factories. Let's say you crank up the speed 10 times from now. Well, it is now. Okay, so look at Giga Shanghai. It does like around 1 million, something like that.
Yeah, 800,000, something like that. Yeah, it's getting there.
Okay, crank it up. Yeah, put it up 10 times from now.
Yeah.
7 million from the same factory space. Okay?
Yeah.
And so do the same. Crank Berlin also. Instead of, they wanted to do 500,000 first stage and maybe they'll let them more. So let's put all the legal issues and permits aside, which is a huge problem there. Also solvable, by the way. I have an idea how to solve it. Mm-hmm. But let's say they let them do what they want. Crank up Berlin, let's say double the size from now to, they said they wanted to do 2 million. But instead of 2, you can do 20.
Yeah.
Let's say don't ramp it up 10 times, ramp it 3 times, you can do it at 6 million from that same factory space.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go. I'm digressing, by the way.
No, yeah.
Sorry,
I'm just trying to, it's fine. I'm just trying to understand like how, so if I go back to my initial question of how we think it's gonna, who's gonna end up with it, right? With that.
Okay. Yeah. So let's flow with this idea that Tesla will become CHOAM, okay? So what this means is everyone that holds CHOAM will be huge, do everything. You'll have everything will be in Elon's sense. The workers are an infinite possibility. Every factory in the world will either use these robots, or they won't be competitive. So, except in the very edge cases, such as when you don't need humans, when everything is already automated. But everywhere where you do need humans, then if you don't use Elon's bots, Tesla's bots, then you're not competitive. So every factory in the world will use Elon's bots. And I'm by the way, I'm not even talking about AGI right now.
Right.
I'm just talking about the
just
factory
bot.
AGI. AGI is also a done deal. And by the way, even if others, it'll be also in my video. But if others beat Tesla to AGI, then still Tesla wins the AGI bot. That's a long story. I'll talk about it later, maybe. But anyway, let's focus. I'll take a small detour just to explain something. I have huge ADHD.
Okay.
When I mean huge, which means that I did a test. When I diagnosed myself, I said, okay, something is wrong with me. Something is different. I did this test. It's in a way a superpower because I see things others don't see. But it's also a liability because before I was diagnosed and so on, it just affected my life in bad ways, so many bad ways. Mm. So I finally found out it's ADHD. Mm. I went and did this test. And when I finished these tests, these guys that did it just came and started looking at me like I was some kind of zoo animal, like some kind of freak. They're asking me like, are you married? How's your wife with it? And so on. What's going on? So basically, the test, the scale goes from 0 to 100. Mm-hmm. Now, 0 is theoretical. It means no ADHD whatsoever. 100 is also theoretical. It means full ADHD, nothing else.
The spectrum, basically.
You are diagnosed as ADHD, and you can start getting drugs and so on, ADHD drugs such as Ritalin and so on. Mm-hmm. If you're 50 and above, 50 is the limit. It says, okay, you're at the upper half, so of the spectrum, you're diagnosed with ADHD. Mm-hmm. my score was 99.7.
Oh, jeez.
I remember that while doing the test, I was without any drug, without any ADHD drugs and so on. While doing this test, as it's going with the computer, you just go and you have to fill things in the computer and so on. While doing this test, I noticed, I said, they only bring people to this test, because if you look at the table, it's clean, the computer is clean, but there are balls of hair and so on, dirty in the back of the room. They don't clean the room; they just clean this post where people sit. And I'm doing this test, and they notice it. So it's crazy. So I think this sort of explains why there are things I see that others don't.
Absolutely.
It's been amazing for me, but also why I digress all the time. So I try to focus on your.
It's fine.
Question.
No problem at all. Yeah, no problem at all. I've a few of the people that I know and my friends have ADHD, and it's something that I've used some of these things as truly as superpowers. Like there's definitely some debilitating things for it, but I think the unique perspective that you get when you have sort of that atypical way of thinking and the atypical way of operating, I feel like there's a lot of benefits. Now, of course, some of the downsides can be debilitating, but no, absolutely, man. Like you're fine. You don't have to explain why you're sort of diverging from place to place. You're fine. I really find it very fascinating how you think about how you're thinking about the future and the things that sort of you're seeing sort of play out, from the time you invested in Tesla to where we are now. It's just, I can tell you that one of the big things I've been really thinking about, because if there's one person that I think is going to be able to essentially democratize everything, democratize the economy, essentially, I think it's somebody like an Elon Musk, like if somebody like that is heading the companies and is heading the sort of initiatives that's going to allow us to have plenty for everybody, then I can see that becoming a thing. But my fear is that say he's not around anymore in say 20, 30 years time, and then there's this foundation of companies and things that are making everything. But then if legislation somehow comes out that's tries to limit it to the few and not the many, then it gets hairy, right? So that's why when you said you think you figured it out, I'm very curious to hear. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say Tesla. Let's go with this idea that Tesla becomes CHOAM. It has infinite resources. Okay.
Yeah.
It goes into lots of businesses and so on. It has infinite resources. So I think you'll agree with me that with the stock market being in the long run weighing machine, if the company has infinite resources, then you as a shareholder and myself as a shareholder will have also infinite resources, right? Right. Basically, close to infinite.
If you're a shareholder, if you're able to buy the company.
Okay. Sure. Now, the basic idea is, I say, first of all, everyone holding a share right now will become a millionaire, if not a billionaire. Become a millionaire, everyone holding a single share right now, if Tesla becomes CHOAM. Because, as my friend put it, it's an option call on infinity. So
interesting. Okay.
So you have one share right now, and Tesla becomes an infinitely large company. Or not infinite. Let's say the company is worth 1,000 trillion.
Yeah. Many orders of magnitude, which is much bigger than the next one. Yeah.
Many orders of magnitude bigger than today's economy.
Yeah.
And it will be bigger than today's economy because the economy at that time will be larger than Tesla, of course, because lots of companies will use these bots to do things that are unimaginable right now. As I said before in the Starship example, like right now you can't take your deceased pet and let it fly around the world before it goes incinerates before it cremates into the atmosphere, becomes one with the atmosphere and so on. But it's become possible. It will become possible. So basically, Tesla will have lots of resources, and it'll be a huge company, and every shareholder will become very rich. Now, here's the great point. One option is let's say what happens after Elon. Okay, what happens one day when Elon is not with us anymore?
Mm-hmm.
One option is that someone else replaces him, and the company becomes a monopoly on everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like right now, we pay when you buy something, a certain percentage of it goes to Google for its advertising services, most likely Google or Facebook and so on. We have some monopolies that tax everything that we do indirectly. But what I think will happen, is that because it is Elon and because he is so unique, he will somehow give at least part of his shares to humanity. Now, let's say if you divide the shares in a way that you say, I'll give everyone sub-share, okay? So if a company has infinite size, then of course everyone, no matter how you divide it, everyone will have infinite resources. Now let's talk something more realistic, not infinity, but something really large. Okay.
Yeah.
The problem right now, if you look about companies, or we say, let's say if you take the shares of a company and you give everyone in the world the share, we won't have a lot, any of us. And when there are new people, people are born, and you want everyone to have this share.
Yeah.
So when people are born, it dilutes us, and suddenly there comes this problem that what we say that socialism or communism doesn't hold because it's against our nature. Because we don't want to give what we have to others just because they decide to have more babies and so on.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, you can take care of your children, I'll take care of my children, and so on. But I don't want to. If you have two children, I don't want to give my shares or so on, and to dilute them because of your kids and so on. But if a company is growing faster than population is, then we don't even feel it.
And is that
let's say for a moment, let's say for a moment, let's say there's a company that has 1 million shares, and there are 1 million people. Okay, each share is worth $1. Okay, and if instead of 1 million people we have 2 million people, then each of us has half $1.
Yeah,
right. If we spread it among everyone. But if this company is not worth the same 1 million, it becomes worth 10 million.
Right.
Then we have $5 instead of the first $1.
Yeah.
Even though, despite the population growing twice, doubling, population doubled, but the economy, and I look at Tesla for example, as the economy will grow 10 times faster, 10 times the size. By the time the economy, the economy or the company grows 10 times, by the time that the population grows only twice.
You know what's really interesting about that?
Five times more than what we have.
What's really interesting about that too, like say under that example, we do have population growth, and we have a company that's able to essentially create value in a sense for the population. As the population grows, that company will automatically create additional value to be able to serve that additional population as well. Yeah. You know, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
That's very interesting.
Basically, so in a way, look at it like Henry Ford. One of the great things he did was he paid his workers a lot, more than the regular wages, because he said, I want my workers, my employees, to be able to buy Ford cars. And this is what happens, because they started buying cars, and the economy itself, the entire economy grew, not just the company, but the entire economy. Now, I think that, if we look at most Tesla shareholders, want to buy Tesla cars. And we have the means usually to buy Tesla cars when we own the shares because they're growing so fast and so on.
Yeah.
And by the way, I'm waiting for my car. It's about February.
Okay.
So can't wait.
Hopefully you get
Can't wait. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, the basic idea is if we all become shareholders, all of us, not just us early birds, but let's say when Tesla becomes CHOAM, even if Elon gives 10% of what he has, or 5%, and I'm not talking about what the hard left, extreme leftists are talking about, these billionaire techs and so on.
Mm-hmm.
Because right now things are far from infinite.
Mm-hmm.
Right now we are constrained with the resources and so on. Mm-hmm. And the best example is if Elon was taxed on his assets after he did PayPal, we would not have SpaceX and Tesla.
Right.
Because he funded them himself and he almost ran out of money.
Right.
So right now, it's impossible to do this. But I think if Tesla becomes CHOAM and he starts shooting up towards infinity, then what happens is that basically, if he can give 10% of his shares, it'll be enough for everyone in the world forever to have everything.
Yeah, 10% of infinity is still infinity, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And he'll still have infinity.
But what's the one thing there, like it's such an interesting dynamic because it's almost like for this to work, and correct me if I'm wrong, for this to work, we need somebody, in this case, an Elon figure that, I don't know if it's out of the kindness of his heart or because he wants humanity's best interest in mind, to be altruistic in a way and say, I am going to single-handedly create this environment for civilization. So it requires one individual person to essentially make this happen. Like say you had somebody that was, it's almost like a super black and white thing. So like let's role play and say it wasn't Elon Musk who was creating a CHOAM, which was a company that's going to take us to infinity. Instead, it's like Bizarro Musk, like opposite world Musk that has the same engineering talent, but he's, instead of being somebody who wants to enable civilization to have everything, he only wants to keep it for himself and the people that buy into his mission. Under that scenario, the opposite happens, right? It's almost like apocalypse versus utopia in a sense. It's like this all hinges on one person. It's kind of scary, don't you think?
Basically it is. It does. And maybe I'm putting too much hope on Elon, but he is different.
I agree with you.
He's very different.
I agree with you.
And basically has a lot of things that are like a child, and I mean it in a good way. Mm-hmm. It's maybe part of
pure, very pure.
Pure, and he wants to do what's right and what's good. And I don't think like the Tesla Qs will disagree, but there are Tesla Qs.
Yeah.
Basically,
they've been wrong this whole time.
Exactly. So basically, the main idea is I don't think he's motivated by money. He's motivated by things that excite him and by wanting to do good and so on. And I don't think anything more exciting than this future that we just talked about. The basic idea was everything. When he said that I say exactly what will happen in the future, I meant that whatever you want to do, whatever you can imagine or others can imagine and you like that idea, will be possible as long as it doesn't hurt others and so on, or is against the laws of physics. But money won't be a problem.
It's essentially like you having a share in CHOAM gives you like ability to access the tools that CHOAM has, and then CHOAM's able to do everything, right? Essentially. Yeah.
Basically, and you get the economy gives you, the company, the shares, or let's say the dividends and so on, that the company gives will ever enable everyone to become ultra rich, and without it distracting anything from Elon's wealth or possibilities, because as you said, 10% of infinity is still, the other 90% is still infinity.
Yeah.
Now, when you said about this Bizarro, Elon, I thought you were going to say Zuckerberg.
Sure, yeah. We could hear any other executive, When do you see this? Like, is this possible outcome a 100-year horizon, a 20-year horizon, a 1,000-year horizon? How do you think about it?
Okay, definitely not 100. Let's say infinity will take time. Infinity will take infinite time.
Sure.
But for all practical reasons,
like when Elon decides to give civilization the ability to become self-sufficient, essentially, like have access to everything. Like, when do you think that could happen?
$30 years.
30 years.
30. Yeah. Around it.
Okay. And what gives you the confidence?
I'm not confident.
Okay. What gives you the idea?
Basically, we are climbing an exponential, and it's going faster than we can imagine. So, infinity will take time. But the factory bot, as I said, there will be a video about this in a few days. The factory bot is here. It's a done deal. I'll put another quote from my friend, and I stand behind it myself 100%. She said, it's not a matter anymore of whether Tesla will win the factory bot. It's only a matter of how many shares can we buy before the market catches on.
Mm-hmm.
And just what she did herself, she sold her car. She has money for a house. She put all her money for the house, all her money for the car on Tesla stock. Her father, stepfather, her father sold his car also. She said that everyone around her, once her company after AI Day, they analyzed Tesla, and they analyzed the AI Day. They came to the idea that to the conclusion that Tesla will win the bot, both factory bot and later on AGI bot. And even if others beat them, then they will win the factory bot and the AGI bot also. So even if your company, let's say Google or whatever, comes out with AGI or an AGI bot 2 years ahead of Tesla, Tesla will still win. I showed in the video. Let's leave it at that. So the bottom line is she pivoted her entire company's long-term plans to somehow match the possibility of living in a world where there is a bot.
Yeah.
And basically, so let's go back to your question, diverged again. The factory bot will be here by the time of next year. Okay. They won't sell it first time. And same goes, only things that I expect right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is sure.
Yep.
By the end of next year, they'll already have a bot in their factory doing testing, let's put it this way.
Moving boxes from place to place. Yeah. Simple stuff.
Yeah, moving boxes, putting wires in cars, doing and matching the battery pack to the car or the instrument panel into the car. Everything that currently people do.
Yeah.
And go one station at a time and learn that station. Learn to do it. It doesn't need to be. It's not AGI yet.
Yeah.
Just has to know a single thing, and the technology is here already.
Yeah.
There is no technological gap whatsoever. So basically, that's in about at the end of next year, and they will start introducing it into the state in their factory, one station at a time. So it's not very far from there. Let's say 1 year before it can start replacing all the bots and doing all the stations, except maybe something edge cases and so on.
Yeah.
So what will happen is that they will start ramping up their factories with these bots, turning them into these alien dreadnoughts They will use these bots in SpaceX and in Tesla. They will grow much faster than they're growing right now.
Yeah.
It's part of the exponential, and the bot will let them do this.
Yeah.
And just a moment, I have to just close the window for a moment, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Just one moment to just close the window.
No problem.
Sorry about that. Okay.
No problem.
So basically, from about a year from now, they'll start to ramp up Tesla's factories with the bot. And they'll start using it internally, and then they'll use it with SpaceX and maybe send some to Mars and so on. And the analysts will all say, what's going on? This bot is just a pet project. It's not doing anything. They're not selling anything. It's not really. But in fact, it's a good thing because they're only using it inside Tesla because it's giving them more benefit than selling it.
Everybody else. Yep.
So they will ramp up and so on with this bot and use it. And
the thing that came to mind,
huge.
Yeah. The thing that came to mind as you're describing that story is like, I'm already imagining, like, say if this happens late next year, the bot comes out and it happens late next year. Theoretically, some sort of version of full self-driving should already be on the roads, theoretically, that's doing some sort of automated driving. So that's already going to have some sort of buzz around it. And then I can already picture, like, I don't know if you're familiar with the show 60 Minutes, which is like it's like a show in the States where they do like journalistic stuff or whatever. I can already picture there's like a whole 20-minute segment them touring the Tesla factory, and you have these bots doing the jobs of humans, and Elon's like, check this out, this is going to revolutionize manufacturing and everything. And what I see happening potentially, say full self-driving is already a thing that's becoming clear that it's going to happen because they've already released it in some markets, and then the bot footage starts coming out. I could see a scenario where you start sort of having almost, I don't know if I want to call it a bubble, but like Tesla euphoria. Like the population will start getting inspired by these developments that Tesla's doing. And I wonder if by then, like say by the end of next year or even 2024, call it, like at some point it has to become something that people will really start believing is going to happen. Because I would say like you or I, and folks in the Tesla community that are optimistic about AI and the bot and AGI and all that stuff. Like, even though all of us are perhaps not super confident, but we believe it's a likely scenario that it's going to happen, that we're probably like less than a fraction of a percent of the population at large, right? But like once this becomes a more accepted potential future, I wonder how that's going to completely change how people view the likelihood of a CHOAM or the likelihood of Tesla becoming something that's much like way bigger than just a car company. It becomes this just mammoth of industry, in a sense. I just want to mention that because that just came to mind, and I'm like, boy, wouldn't that be exciting? Like, isn't that going to be an exciting day? Like once the broader population, given that Tesla will solve these issues, let's just assume that's the case. Like once that spark goes off, and theoretically you already have Starship, doing maybe some simple stuff to the moon by then, hopefully. Like I feel like the entire fabric of civilization is almost going to start shifting around that time, because they'll go from saying, hey, this is potentially not possible, to wow, there's actually like bits and pieces and clues that we're heading towards that direction. And I wonder, that's when the exponential goes, boo. And then everyone's okay, yep, this is going to happen. It's going to inspire a lot of people, and then you'll have all kinds of funding going into the and like everybody else will buy in, essentially. Do you see that happening? Like, do you think it's going to be are we that close to that sort of chasm? Like, are we that close to that hump of the point of no return, or do you think we're already past it? Or do you think it's farther?
I don't know. Let's put it this way. If you look at the stock market for a moment, I think it'll take a lot of time.
It's ugly right now.
Yeah, before.
Go ahead, sorry.
When Elon sold stocks a few days ago,
yeah,
I hoarded everything I could.
Good for you.
I bought on leverage and so on. I'm leveraged just for that. But I mean, anything. basically, let's go back to what you asked. It will take a lot of time, more than that 60 minutes interview piece and so on, because of several reasons. One of them, if you look at analysts, for example, analysts, I'm quoting things from, or sort of building on things that I saw that Gary Black said and so on.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at the last earnings call and so on, not this one, the one before that, when they said that Tesla will not build, they will not build the Model 2 or Model A or whatever, small Tesla, then we saw it as something positive, because we said, okay, it's because they have too much demand for the Model Y. So why build a cheaper car when you're limited with resources? Right now we are limited. Mm-hmm. So if they have limited resources, then selling a Model Y with that chip or with that battery, instead of selling a Model 2 or A or whatever, the Y gives them more money. So it's more logical. It's both more money, and they are paid more, and it's cost them less because they don't have to build the production lines and so on.
Yep. Much more efficient.
So we saw it positive. But if you look at analysts, they just have this spreadsheet, and they say, okay, Model Y, we expect them to sell this number. Maybe they'll sell a bit more. Model 2, whatever. They just put a line there, they're not making it. Mm-hmm. And the stock went down and so on. So if you look at the bot, going back to the bot itself, let's say they make a bot and it starts working in their factories. The analysts still see it as something for the future, because they say, okay, they're not selling it yet. And it'll take a long time before they sell it, because it'll bring them much more benefit to use it for their own sake.
Yeah.
By the way I see it is also that once that they start producing the bots faster than they can deploy in their factories, and it's also that the bots are ready for general use and so on.
Yeah.
But let's say they're ready and they start selling them, they won't really sell them, because take a bot for a moment. Okay? So a bot can do what, let's say the bot can do what a worker can do, line worker can do.
Yeah.
But it can work 3 shifts, right? So instead of 1 salary, you have 3 salaries, 3 workers. Okay.
Yeah. And working probably twice as fast. So that's probably like 6 workers, right?
Yeah. Okay. So it's 6.
Yeah.
And also it can work 7 days a week, not 5 days a week.
Right.
So instead of these 6, it's about, let's say, about an 8 or whatever. Yep. Let's say about 8 salaries. And let's say Tesla wants to, you own a factory. And you have the option of buying this bot, and you know from previous experience and so on, that the bot will do the work just like these 8 workers. And it'll do it the same way, repeatedly, the same way, all the time, without getting tired. And consistently, we won't have any quality problems and so on, because it doesn't come drunk to work. It doesn't get arrested.
No errors, 100% consistent.
Yeah. Okay. So let's say Tesla says, I want you to give me, it's worth like 8 salaries. I want you to give me the exact 8 times the salary of a worker. Not $1 less, 8 salaries. Okay. Mm. It will still be worth to you a lot, because you don't have to pay for healthcare.
Yeah.
You don't have days off. You don't have to pay
don't need
for
HR.
catering.
Yeah.
Now, even more, let's say you don't have to have all these safety at work issues. And I don't mean just a bot getting hurt or a worker getting hurt, but you can leave the workplace. If it's a hot area, you can leave it hot. If it's cold, you can leave it cold. If there are poisonous gases, who cares?
Yeah.
You don't have to take care for this. So it's worth a lot of money. You'll give these 8 salaries for each bot. So there's no reason for them to sell it to you. It'll just collect salaries. This bot will take 8 salaries and you'll pay it for each month you have it, 8 salaries.
And what's crazy is like the cost structure of a bot, if you think about it from a raw materials perspective, is not that much. You think about there's probably like 20 to 25 grand of materials in there. I did a simple model to try and figure out like how much it would cost to manufacture a bot, and I came up with 25,000. Batteries, materials, joints, everything. It's like 25,000.
Yes, much less.
Probably less, right? Yeah.
Once it's mass production, much less.
Yeah,
much less.
Probably less than 10 grand. After that case. And Tesla, it's essentially equivalent. So 8 salaries at an average of say 35,000, 40, even 50,000 a year. That's 400. So it's they're making $390,000 per bot theoretically per year, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Jeez.
Now, and you can produce as many bots as you like, and you'll have a market for as many bots as you like.
390,000 times, let's say they make 1 million bots a year. That's so many zeros. $390 billion in profit per year for 1 million bots. 390 billion, essentially.
And once you make them, it's per year. You make these million bots. You don't have to make them anymore. You just collect salaries. All this accumulated.
Yeah. And so the 5-year ROI is like 2 trillion. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeez, man.
This is why they're becoming CHOAM. This is why I see them as becoming CHOAM.
Wow. See, like putting it within that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
This is why I'm leveraged on Tesla, because they are I'm convinced. My friend she walked me through it. She just told me at a certain point, I won't tell you. I want you to understand by yourself why this is happening. And I went one step in time, and I saw there are no roadblocks. The technology is here right now.
So crazy.
Tesla had it, I mean.
Yeah.
And so they will grow very fast. Now, you won't see it at the beginning because, let's go back to the question. Now, when will the market understand it? This 60 minutes piece and so on. Mm-hmm. So at first, they will have these bots working there. And then 60 minutes will come and do a nice piece and showing them working in the factories. And then we'll say, oh, wow, this is great. This is the future. And maybe people will invest in Tesla. But shortly after, it will go down because they're not selling anything. Their car business is going great. They're producing lots of cars. They're producing lots of roofs. Maybe one will start seeing them doing the roofs, putting the tiles on roofs with bots.
Yeah.
This could make a shift when they're visible outside. But as long as it's within the factories, it's not very visible. So people won't be aware. And all the analysts will just say, it's an internal project. It's not safe enough. It's not good enough. If it was good, they would sell it.
Yeah.
They would not connect the dots and say, okay, Tesla is ramping so fast because of these bots.
Yeah.
Because they can ramp up the production line, they are becoming these alien dreadnoughts.
That's yet another opportunity for those that feel like perhaps they missed the boat. Like the craziest thing about this whole Tesla story is that I've been talking to people that, like these are folks that aren't really well versed in sort of what Tesla's working on, and perhaps they don't think exponentially, they think sort of nearly and linearly, and it's okay, like it is what it is. But I get so many comments that they're like, well, the stock's already, it's at $1 trillion already. Like, how much higher can it go? And like the thing I keep shooting back is this is like literally your opportunity right now. And not investment advice, but this could be an opportunity for you to still jump on the train. Like it's still super, 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 super early if these things were to happen because of how incredibly transformational the target that Tesla has for its long-term ambitions can be. So that's still to me like so fascinating that we're still just getting started. $1 trillion market cap, 10 years, but you really think about it, the company has only been around for 15 years. You know, that's the crazy thing is, you know, it hasn't been around for that long. You know, like if you put it within the context of other manufacturers.
Just
yeah.
wow. I mean, what this means is, let's put together what you just said and what I said. It means that in 2 years from now, less than 2 years, 1.5 years from now, let's say they'll have this bot doing internal work, and it will be capable of doing this work. Well, this means that 17 years from forming this company, they not only revolutionized EVs and storage and so on, but also made this bot. And they are on their way to winning AGI also in the AGI bot, which is later on. Okay, I will keep things for this video of mine about how they will win the AGI bot. At least I gave almost everything away.
No, it's okay. Yeah, keep it. No, please keep it.
But, but it's amazing. I mean, 17 years from this company forming, and they are going to win to make these bots that replace people in the most complicated manual work there is. And I do think they're on their way to replacing us with also the thinking work and so on, creative work and so on. But this will take more time. Not only the bot, this will also be computers and so on. They don't just need the bots for that. They're on their way. And from what I understand, their AI team is amazing. Not just from what I gathered, after AI, they started hiring much faster, and they're getting good people. Yeah,
that's one thing. I mean, I can tell you, like having worked there, it's the amount of talent they have in every team is bananas. Like they don't just have amazing engineers, they have amazing everything. Everybody's brilliant. You know, everybody's so smart. I felt so dumb working there. It was crazy. It's how they can pull the talent from different worlds and different areas of expertise is so impressive. It really is. It's so impressive. I know we're a little over. Sorry, go ahead. Were you going to say something?
I'm really impressed by what you said. You said in one of your videos about these line workers, these people who material
handlers. Yeah. Yep.
That they were involved in planning things in the factory and planning the lines and what will happen there. I was so impressed with that.
Yeah.
Because I really saw that people are very much in other factories. You have this hierarchy and you have these labels and boxes, and you're putting a certain box. And even if you want to give ideas, they usually block you.
No.
And from my experience, when this doesn't happen, it's rare, then both the factory benefit, the company benefits from it, and the people themselves, it's
100%.
Great feeling.
100%. It's you really give the empowerment to people. And the one thing that was always fascinating to me is that the one eye-opening moment that I had there, or I'm still trying to figure out, is Tesla really good at finding the best talent in the world, or is Tesla's environment enabling everybody to reach their true potential? Like that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I think it's a mixture of both. Like I think I think, you know, if you take, say, Ford, GM, and take every automaker, and then you take what their equivalent of a material handler, and you would put them in Tesla's environment of problem solving and design, I bet you probably at least half of those workers would have a similar impact than the people at Tesla. I think it's something about that environment that Tesla has created that enables people to reach their maximum potential. And the maximum potential of humans is not just move box from point A to point B. It's design layouts, design processes, figure out how to implement tools, figure out the best flow, figure out how to build new things that we can use. That is really the big takeaway for me. And it's almost like a new way of running a company. It's a brand new way of running a company. It's like, at least at that scale, you know, if you think about like startups or smaller companies or companies that are really focused and you have a small team, so it's very easy to kind of collaborate. You see that a lot, but like in a company that has over 100,000 people, to have a not only basically a similar environment than that, but also trusting these people with an outsized amount of value of the company. You know, like designing a warehouse from scratch is expensive. expensive. You would usually have to pay a lot of people a lot of money to make that happen. But now you leverage the workforce that you have, and you trust them and assume that they're going to be able to figure it out, and they figure it out. And they figure it out 100% of the time. They always figure it out. It was stunning for me. Yeah.
There was also something else that both you and Joe Justice said, that they are also given a lot of data.
Yes.
About bottlenecks in the company, and you can always look at the data and say, okay, here's something that interests me, and I think I can improve, and you can go do that job, and so on.
Yeah. And that was probably more on the manufacturing side. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a personal example. I told you about that project that I worked about that was very taxing and so on. We worked lots of hours. It's basically it's a pretty famous system, life-saving. But anyway, we worked lots of hours. We were on a mission, and we did a lot of work. Now, I was the manager. I led the development of one of the main components there. Mm-hmm. And what happens was this work was very agile. The way I saw it was agile. My background is my first degree in I learned aerospace engineering, mm-hmm. and from aerospace engineering I moved to software. I also had an MBA along the way, but I don't really use it at all. So basically, I looked at it as an engineering problem, and I looked at this as what does the project itself need? So there was an example, I gave it in one of my videos, that we were a few days before before a test, a live fire test, that was, we're about to give the system to the customer. And the head of the project, it was like before midnight, so the head of the project comes and says, and calls me on the phone and says, "Are you sure?" And I say, "Yeah," and calls me to his room. And they tell us about this new problem that they want the system to address. And mm-hmm. Can we add this? Now, normally, the answer would be hell no. Because normally you freeze the design. Yeah. You freeze the product, but the code 6 months before you have to deliver it. And then you just do tests and checks and so on, and you produce a system. And here it was a few days before we have to do this major test. Mm. And we added it. Now, why I'm bringing this idea, I want this point, because the organization I worked at the time, we had this kind of matrix structure, which means you have these professional groups of software or aerodynamics and so on. You have various groups that specialize in a certain type of work. And you have the projects that they run the project and they use people from different groups. Mm-hmm. So it's this kind of matrix structure. And when I worked there, I worked with a project and they did everything they wanted. And when I thought it would not endanger the system, because you don't want to put input bugs and so on. Right. And you don't want to ruin the current capabilities. So you have to be very, very responsible. It's very people's lives depend on it. So, but as long as we didn't ruin anything, I would do anything they wanted, because you are making the system better. You improve its capabilities. So if it's needed, it saves lives. So, but there was one thing. The project was they were ecstatic with me. I did great work. I'm very proud of it. Mm-hmm. But I also had this manager from the professional group. And above me, he wasn't agile, let me tell you. Hmm. Now, all along, he didn't even look at what I was doing. didn't interest him. He just talked to the project, so they were happy. So, okay, he doesn't have to look at my work because everyone's happy. I'm doing the job. And he can focus on other stuff. And then one day, before that test, he starts looking at things. What are you doing right now? I said, okay, we're inputting this capability. What? It's a few days before this test and so on. What are you doing? And they start checking it. Like, let's say everything I did was documented. Every change, every capability, everything we did was documented, but it was not documented like in all these thick documents, which are structured and so on. We did these things in a way that would enable us to later on pull all the documentation out and organize it, automated in automated fashion. So we said after we do the delivery, we can finish to make all the documentation perfect. Right now, what's important is just to make a robust system with as many capabilities as possible. Mm-hmm. Now, this guy just looks at it and says, what are you doing? This is not how it's done. And let's say he just, I left the group. That's it. I couldn't go with this one. From the projects, they said it's great. They were ecstatic. They wanted me to work there and so on. But I just said, okay, this is enough for me. I've had enough and made this delivery. Now let's give someone else the reins and to go on with the product.
Yeah.
But what you said is the bane of most corporations is that they are not structured like Tesla. They have this hierarchy. You can't do anything that your boss doesn't like, your direct boss. While with Tesla, if your direct boss doesn't like something, but you do, and you think you're right, you can fight it.
Yep.
You don't need to take no as an answer. You can go on with it if you think you're right.
Yeah.
I guess that the bottom line there has to be someone making a decision and so on. But you can't go fight things and so on, because if you are wrong, decision is made.
You have free reign to find the right decision, essentially. You're trusted to find the right decision, and and I 100% agree with you. I think one of the very interesting things about that is that, that takes a certain level, like you don't, for you to be successful in that scenario, you can't have an ego. So you can't be somebody who's like, I'm always right, or I think I got the right answer. So that gets deleted the second you walk into the company. That's one. And then you also are surrounded by leadership and people that drive teams that reinforce that. So that's, they have a lot of folks that are almost natural leaders or understand, not every single person's like that, obviously, because it's impossible to have 100% of the population to be like that. And those that aren't get rooted out of the company or are coached to sort of perform in that way. And that's what's really interesting, is that it's always down to, an individual, in this case, like a manager or somebody, like a leader that you encounter that you had, where it could completely destroy the DNA or any sort of like culture that enables the people to be empowered to find the right solution. And I agree with you 100% that this is the bane of like corporations. And I would say like well over 80% of companies, in my opinion, I think would benefit dramatically by entrusting their people more. That just hire the right person, of course, like invest time in hiring, but empower. I don't know if you agree with that statement or not, but I just feel like if that's
fully agree. I fully agree.
It's pretty wild stuff. But anyway, I know we're almost an hour and a half in. I know you wanted there was a little bit of a Nikola Tesla story that I'm curious to hear. Did you want to share that before we wrap this up? Yeah.
Okay. Basically, from the time when I went to grad school.
Okay.
I was just about my first year in studying and studied aerospace, and we had this physics course. And there were two groups, two professors giving this course. One of them was the hotshot that also wrote some of the books and so on, topic and so on. And the other was a very, very old man. And most people went to this hotshot because he taught you all the formulas, and he wrote the book and so on. And he went straight to the topic and told you everything about it. While I and another friend of mine were among a very, very small group who went to this older guy. And he told stories all the time, which means like for example, there was one time he came in this sweater, and he told us in the middle, you think I came in sweater because it's cold? It's not cold. I came here because I want to teach you about static electricity. And he took this transparent film, this plastic film, and started rubbing it on his belly and so on, like very happy, like it was like a very small child, very happy, beaming when he's rubbing it on his belly. So and then he puts it, and you see the static electricity moving something. He says, okay. And then after this story, after he demonstrated it, he starts telling us about what static electricity is, and goes later on into the governing equations and so on, how you calculate it, and so on. And it was amazing. Like, he told us, for example, a story. He said that when he was a child, he was very curious. And he did an experiment that until this day, he is the only one that knows the results. He took a fork and stuck it, a fork or maybe a nail, and stuck it into the electrical socket. And he learned two things. One, that electricity is dangerous. And the other that nobody else in the world knows is why the entire block had a power outage for a few days. Okay? So he told lots of stories. And it was fun. It was fun studying with such a professor. But one of the stories he told us was that while he was a student himself, it's very old. While he was a student, this professor came from Serbia. While he was a student, they made collections. They collected money to send to Nikola Tesla to the United States, because Tesla was very poor at the time and so on. And he was their compatriot. So they made collections to send money to him. And it was very touching. And he taught us all about Tesla and things that they did and so on. And the entire course, it's electricity and so on. So AC, DC and so on. Told us about Tesla and about Edison and so on. And he gave us all these stories. And it was so much fun studying. And when you study something and you learn it, it's much better than just going to the equations, because you understand it. You understand what happens. And you also, it's even more, it spurs your curiosity. And you take it with you. You become, I'm an engineer, you become a better engineer with time, because you know that you don't need to look at the equation. You need to understand what happens. And it's interesting. It's very interesting what happens. It's a story. So basically, if you look at back to that course, we came at the end of the semester, there were these exams, and I got 100%. It's say 100. I got 100. My friend that studied with me and got a 96, and our entire group got our average scores were much, much higher from that group with that hotshot from the professor. Because this guy, he just taught us to think. He taught us to understand things. And the moment there were questions in the exams that were different from what we were taught. And this was the case, because normally they had these questions in previous semesters that were very much like what we studied.
Right.
In our semester, they were a bit different. Things that were not exactly what we studied, but we had to think. And we just knew how to think.
Yeah.
We just knew how to approach it, because it's just all these stories that we heard. And so all of us got great grades with this course.
That's awesome.
And later on, after I graduated and so on, In later years, every time I went to the university, I would try to visit him. And one here told me, I don't teach anymore. And I asked him why. He said, the students say that I tell too many stories.
Really?
It's emotional here.
Wow. Man.
So anyway, this is one professor that changed my life, I think, because he taught me that engineering is fun. And it's interesting in story. It's such a shame that people it's like in business, people want to get results right now instead of understanding the physics and so on.
Yeah.
And it's one of the reasons that Tesla is so successful is that they want the story. They say, okay, there is a problem with EVs that we need batteries. Okay, we need more batteries than the entire world produces. Okay, can this be done? Why? What's stopping us from making this and so on? And let's build a business plan for it and so on. What's stopping us from making FSD? We need the data. Let's take every car, collect the data and so on.
Right.
And they don't just think about, okay, let's do these equations to get to profit now. They're looking in the long run and try to see the governing equations and what the real problems and setbacks are and going this way. Basically, I don't remember the name of this professor anymore. I have to check, but really sorry about that. But really, every time I think about him, it changed my life.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful story. I mean, that is thank you for sharing that, because that is such a perfect example of how a good teacher is worth his or her weight in gold. They truly are. They are the true builders of civilization. A good teacher. And if you have somebody that can mentor you and inspire you, it doesn't matter how. Like, there's so many different ways to teach properly. And it's such a shame that he couldn't continue that because they found his methods, whatever, like not good or whatever. But that is that's such a shame that happened. But the fact that you at least got to experience his mentorship and his teaching is kind of like a blessing. It really is. And I'm sure you feel very lucky, and obviously you're very emotional and passionate about that. So thank you so much for sharing that story. And I couldn't agree more with you. A good teacher is just so important. So important.
I think one of the things that I found interesting in your videos, and I think also Joe Justice, one of the things you said is that Tesla teaches people how to think.
Yes.
How to solve problems. I mean, they don't teach you how to solve a certain equation. You're expected to find that yourself.
Yeah.
What they teach you is how to approach problems.
Yep.
And what they teach you is that anything that physics and they allow, everything that physics permit can be solved. And if you think hard enough and maybe you share your data and your insights with other people, together you can form a solution to something that was previously unsolvable.
Yep.
And I think that you and Joe and everyone else that leaves Tesla is a different person than the one that entered Tesla.
So true.
And you have much more capabilities, much more abilities, and much more knowledge of how potent and how capable you are and can be.
Yeah.
And I think that throwing these seeds into the world, we will see lots and lots of startups and companies forming all around us that wouldn't be possible without this mentorship.
100%. 100%.
So what you said about my good teacher, you're the better teacher.
I don't know about that. I think teachers definitely teach differently, but I agree with you 100%. I think that's what I'm personally most excited about, is seeing the people that I've met through that company once their journey is over at Tesla and they decide to move on, then like you said, they're going to make some incredible things for society and civilization. And they've learned so many lessons through that furnace almost. You know, it really is like a thing where it's just so intense. And it's you know, we have a thing where we say, you know, we throw people to the fire. Like basically, hey, yeah, figure out how to dance on those coals. You know, you got to figure out how to make it happen, you know? So it's a very fascinating thing. But yeah, man, I'm very lucky. And I think a lot of people that work there feel the same way. And I can't wait to see that next generation come through. But thank you so much for this discussion. My goodness, we have some very intense topics there, especially around AI, and I love the story you shared here at the end about your teacher and your mentor. But you're welcome back anytime you want to come back and deep dive some more topics. I would love to have you back on. But thank you so much again. Love your channel. Really love the way you do your channel and how in depth you get with topics, and you hit them from very unique angles. And it's obvious that it's a labor of love, and it's something that you really spend a lot of time doing and building for us. So I want to thank you again for doing all that work, and thank you for spending time with me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm also a very big fan of your channel. I have lots of insights from there. It's really great. Thank you very much for having me. I had fun, I have to say.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah, I love talking about the future, and I love hearing different ways of how people sort of arrive to conclusions. And I think yours, I think I would love for your future to happen. I would love it. I would love it if that happens. And yeah, it's going to be a great thing. But yeah, man, thank you.